Hi, this is Kobe Phillips, VP of Cloud here at Telarus, and today we welcome Foghorn CTO Peter Rizakis. Peter, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So I'd love you to kind of just give us a little bit of background on all things Foghorn, but first let me kind of take a step back, explain a little bit of the relationship that brought Foghorn to Telarus. So we had Evoque data centers approaching us for a while, and we were looking to bring them in as a supplier with really their traditional data center products and services. They got a great channel team over there that we're really familiar with, and Jimmy Sanders and Paul Mon. And then they let us know, hey, we just acquired Foghorn. And all of a sudden, there's a lot more acceleration to those conversations, and we were certainly more invested in getting you guys into the portfolio because of all of the things that Foghorn can bring to the table in association with what Evoque already did. So we're really excited to hear about those. So if you wouldn't mind shedding a little bit of light on really where Foghorn plays and what you guys bring to the table for our partners.
Sure, definitely. So Foghorn is basically a cloud agnostic architecture and engineering group. So we've got a bunch of hands-on keyboard engineers. We help customers with their GCP, Azure, and AWS environments. We do a lot of design and build on those platforms, and then help customers optimize for security, cost, reliability. We help them set up their DevOps tooling and automation. We do have a big focus in that area on helping companies manage cloud infrastructure as code. And then on an ongoing basis, we pretty much help those companies continually improve, scale, and secure those environments as their business changes, as the cloud changes, and as their customer needs change.
Wow. So pretty much all those big kind of like new hot button conversations that are happening in our environment for cloud infrastructure. You said infrastructure as code and some of these other key elements, and then obviously the security of. So you guys have specialties in all three major public clouds, it sounds like: Google, Microsoft Azure, and AWS. And it sounds like you go deep in each one, where we've had other suppliers that are tremendous in one aspect, that's all they focus on. You guys seem to have the ability to really help customers out in all three major public clouds. Is that an accurate statement in your opinion?
That is. Yeah, from the beginning, when we started Foghorn, we have a history in mission critical IT infrastructure. And we, from the beginning, saw that all these platforms, saw them as tools that our customers could use. And we always wanted to make sure we were sitting on the customer side of the table and really being able to help them find the right landing place for each one of their workloads. So we did our best to build that capability on those clouds, even before a couple of those clouds were viable platforms.
Well, and I keep hearing more about GCP in particular, right? Google's public cloud. Could you do maybe a quick SWOT analysis, if you will, where they play in comparison to some of the other guys and where customers have benefited from using GCP in particular?
Sure. And as time has gone on, GCP and Azure have really been forced to build out their product set to compete with Amazon. So the vendors are becoming more and more similar. But I would say, from a strength standpoint on GCP, they've got tons of strength from the history of their company on in the big data space and with their network. And when I say their network, they don't just have a network like a global physical network that they can leverage. Also, how they present that network on GCP for their customers' GCP projects is unique and really strong. You also look at customers of Google Workspace. There's really tight integration and a really low friction way to get moving with leveraging that for SSO and integrating that SSO with GCP, as well as integrating it with their other platforms, AWS and Azure.
So you're seeing a lot of companies, customers utilize probably multiple clouds, right? So having the expertise in all three really gives you guys a leg up in a competitive situation, I would imagine, where you can come in and manage the entire ecosystem. Have you seen a lot of hybrid or / multi-cloud environments recently? Has that been more of the trend?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the small new companies who can be cloud native choose that path. Most companies who've been around a while have an existing data center footprint or colocation footprint. They usually have multiple departments. and those departments are more and more likely to have revenue, have products online, and get to pick their cloud platform of choice. So I think that a lot of companies are being forced in the hybrid multi-cloud model because their businesses are demanding it.
That's kind of the beauty of the cloud, right? You get to use the right platform for the applications and get them where you need it for your end users at the right time. And I think that's been the evolution I've seen and the trend lines with a lot of companies. At first said, "Oh, I have to go pick one," and then they go, "Well, they don't have all the products that, or they don't have all the exact requirements that I need." And so this idea of a hybrid or multi-cloud environment is really kind of taken off. I've seen stats as high as 93% of like enterprises utilizing some kind of a multi-cloud platform. So I love the fact that you guys are able to step in and identify and support customers and give guidance on like, hey, this workload works best out of this environment. These tools work best out of that. I love the fact that we've seen that already happen with some of our partners and their opportunities. The other thing, too, I think that's a little bit different for some of our partners and a little bit of the unknown is the funding that goes into some of these projects, right? And how competitive that's gotten amongst the big three public clouds. Is there, any insight that you guys bring into that and the expertise that it takes to go work within that environment?
Yeah, I mean, I think the easiest way to look at it is that in general, migrating workloads is risky, time-consuming, and expensive. And there's a ton of workloads today that are in the data center that could benefit from being on cloud infrastructure, but it's just the ROI isn't there to commit to the migration. And so the cloud providers know this, and they have a lot to gain by landing these workloads, because once they land there, they're equally difficult to migrate off. And so they're putting their money where their mouth is, and all three of them have really compelling funding programs to help offset some of that cost to new customers. So, and I think the benefit of these, it's not just the cost, but it can really decrease the timeline. And most of them come with the requirement that the customer use that funding with a qualified, vetted partner to make sure that it's going to get done right.
Yeah, I love that. The suppliers that know how to leverage that really take a lot of that upfront cost and burden off of the customers to get into the new environment. And as you start to get to know the game that we'll call it the game that's played there, it's all about getting them in for consumption, right? And that's where a lot of these guys are aiming. So the fact that you guys are able to help with that and guide customers through on how to get some additional funding is critical. The other thing too that I've seen really come into play is that understanding of navigating the entire implementation process, what to move, when to move it, and having the resources and the skill set to do it. I've seen a lot of customers have now been asking our partners for things that we've never seen them ask for, basically because the resource drain that has happened with a lot of the things, just with the Great Resignation and some other key things like that. So are you guys seeing a pretty big increase on not only the ProServe work, but also the management of following? Would you say that's a trend that you're seeing as well on your side?
Yeah, I think so. And I think from my perspective, I'm not sure what all the macroeconomic features are that are driving it, but definitely just the fact that more workloads are moving to the cloud are going to continue to drive that business. Yeah. So we definitely see that. And from a migration standpoint, a lot of companies out there are understand the cloud, and I think that ecosystem is pretty cool. Migrations are interesting because they're sort of unique. And we've been doing migrations since back before we even started Foghorn in 2008, back in the .com 1.0 days when we were helping people, when we were members of professional services for Exodus Communications, one of the big co-location providers.
Yeah.
And migrating companies like Yahoo, not Yahoo in particular, but companies like Yahoo, from their own on-prem data centers into co-location space where they had more direct access to the internet, and they had easier time scaling at incredible rates. So understanding that process is huge.
You mean whenever it was a private cloud, which is now known as a private cloud, right? So the one thing too that I always like to point out when we have these type of conversations for our partners, and then even for a lot of customers, I think it can be overwhelming. Right? There's a lot of technology out there. Sometimes you feel as though you're behind a little bit, or you're not catching up. One thing I always point out, I was at AWS's reInvent this last year, and one thing that always stuck out to me as I left, there was a lot of really cool technology that were coming out. There's always really cool reveals there. But the conversations that were happening were still, why haven't more companies migrated to the cloud? So like it's still square one, even at big, cutting edge tech shows like that. So I always like to point that out for our partners that think, hey, I might be a little bit late to the game. You're not at all. We're seeing a lot of companies just now starting on migration plan. And even if they've already done a lot of it, how much would you say is a optimization play, Peter, where you guys have to step in and go, look, you definitely got set up in AWS or Azure or Google, but it's not really the most efficient way that you can be running it. Are you guys stepping into a lot of those optimization exercises with your customers as well?
Yeah, and sometimes that's because the companies have been successful and they're able to move to the cloud and their business is growing, but they maybe they didn't move in an optimum fashion. Other times it's by design. One thing that's very challenging to do in migrations is to migrate and modernize at the same time. So one of the standard strategies is to lift and shift into the cloud, allow you to close your data center or shrink your data center footprint and stop paying double. And then after you're in the cloud, spend time modernizing your application and optimizing it. So sometimes people are on that journey by plan. Sometimes they got there by accident. Sometimes they've got cloud native, born in the cloud apps that it's time for a refresh. Because if you look at how quickly the cloud providers are innovating on their own platforms, best practice designs that we do sometimes are obsolete in 6 months. The ROI to rip and replace something when you didn't have to do the capital outlay and sweat it for 5 years to get your money's worth, and the speed at which some of these managed services are coming on, make it a no-brainer to just go ahead and constantly rip and replace architectures with the latest and greatest. And so we actually have customers for life who have us going through this cycle with them, on a monthly basis.
So would you say the best way to maybe engage that from a partner, because that's a lot of, the hesitation sometimes in our community is just how to even start to have that conversation. What I kind of picked up out of that is even if a customer is already fully integrated in or into a hybrid environment even, or just fully AWS or Azure, whatever, there's still a good opportunity for a conversation. And maybe that conversation is more, when you moved in, did you modernize, or when have you started a modernization project and optimizing that environment in the last, 6 months, somewhere in that neighborhood? Is that a good way, in your opinion, or is there a better way that you've seen that conversation started that we can give some advice to our partners?
Yeah, I think it's good hygiene in general for all companies to be evaluating, looking at their cloud. Their cloud infrastructure is so dynamic that they need to stay on top of it and to ensure that they're getting their money's worth. The skills in this area are in short supply. So we have customers who we learn from, who have been on stage at Amazon since probably the first or second reInvent as one of the success stories on Amazon, who use us on a regular basis because they simply can't get the work done quickly enough that they need done with their existing staff. So there's always time for a conversation. I don't think there should be concern about, stepping on anybody's toes. We collaborate with the people who are responsible for doing the work we help do. We sit side by side with their engineers and we help them achieve their goals. We don't replace them.
Yeah, I love that. It kind of becoming a part of the team, right? But
yeah.
If the situation calls for it, you guys are able to take on and fully manage the environment after you get it stood up, which I love as well. A lot of our customers, or partners' customers, I should say, are really becoming reliant after a ProServe engagement. We've seen about a 70% conversion rate to management of once they're getting in there. So I think just having that mindset to be a teammate, and then as the opportunity comes up, you can certainly step in. We talked a lot about optimization. We talked a lot about you guys stepping in, getting some upfront costs done. But you guys seem like you do a really good job of kind of understanding the customer's environment from a procurement standpoint, making sure there's not any wasted spend, if you will. Is there any particular? Is that just more of a mindset that you guys have going in, or is there a certain area of expertise that you guys bring to the table there?
Our expertise is really created by our customers coming to us with pain points and us spending time in those areas. And I'd say like up through 2017, our customers' number one pain point was security. So we got really good at security. And since then, it's been surpassed only by cost. And a lot of that money they're spending is really well spent money. They may be spending more, not less than they were on IT before, but they're getting significantly more business value. They're becoming more competitive. But other times, like I said, as those dynamic environments change, things get left behind. Tools like automation tools sometimes leave them behind. So even though their team is doing a really good job or think they're doing a really good job, things are getting left behind. And so, this has created a whole industry called FinOps, where there's tons of tools out there to help engineers. There's tons of best practices. So we spend a lot of time helping companies also move from a system where they can know exactly what their spend is prior to spending it to, hey, now we're going to be getting a variable bill every month based on how much we use. How do we keep our developers experimenting and getting the value out of the cloud without also having a bill that explodes and nobody even knew it was coming?
That's fantastic. And one thing I want to keep, you keep hitting on, you mentioned security multiple times in your answers and correspondence here. How, you said 2017, that was a major, point of contention with your customers. I think Gartner now states somewhere by 23, 24 that 99% of any security breaches in a cloud environment is going to fall at the foot of the customer. Like, people understand their swim lanes, everything from the infrastructure providers, CSPs are a lot more secure. What are you seeing there, and what is the Foghorn approach on security holistically, and what type of products have you guys developed around that?
Well, so first off, it definitely has to be a process in the cloud. A few important factors are really maintaining the velocity that teams are getting out of the cloud and not cutting that off at the knees with old school security processes. So one of the main tenets that we believe in is shifting security left, which means integrating the tools that the customer is going to be using into the development environment early in the development process. That really allows developers to work in a secure environment, but has the automation in place to allow them to do that without slowing them down. And that not only helps build products that don't have to be re-engineered right before they go to production when you do a security test, it also just makes it much easier and more consistent for them to deliver new product to market.
I love that. There's nothing worse than getting all the way through a project, even if it's just in a conceptual nature, and all of a sudden you're getting pulled back, and the CISO walks in and he's like, yeah, we're not doing any of this. So I love the mindset. What we've talked a lot, we've covered a lot of ground here. What services would you say that you guys are able to step in, right now and offer for partners and their customers?
Yeah, and so for new customers, a lot of our initial engagements involve evaluating workloads or their existing cloud platform for best practice, and that's usually driven by some point of pain. So that point of pain was either procurement or businesses getting a bill that they didn't expect and they couldn't afford.
Okay.
A security incident, unfortunately, often drives it, or a failed regulatory compliance audit, where the customer realizes they need to take some action on their environment for it to accomplish their goals. So well-architected reviews, we often do. We do security assessments where we assess best practice in the cloud. We assess the as-built infrastructure, and then we do penetration testing from the bottom all the way up to the top of the stack, including authenticated application penetration testing.
It sounds like you guys cover quite a bit. All very critical elements of a customer's environment or roadmap too, if that makes sense to you. The other thing too, I want to we've talked. This has been really Foghorn centric. Obviously, you guys got purchased by Evoque a little over a year ago. It was like June of 21, if I believe. And how are the two companies and the product sets working together now?
Yeah, and we've we know the data center industry because our experience with our previous consulting company getting acquired by Exodus Communications. So we really knew what to expect, what synergies there may be in working with a company like Evoque, and what hurdles there would probably be if we did. We chose to join Evoque because they had from a top level, they had a vision that was really similar to Foghorn's. That concept of being the customer's single infrastructure provider. And so, as Foghorn, we've continued to focus on the public cloud, but, it makes it tough. Every one of our public cloud customers that's of any substantial size is really a hybrid cloud environment. So we're, continuing to go down that path, and Evoque is looking to support that concept and doing so with some new features in their contracts, what they call spend agility. And spend agility really allows customers to sign up and commit to Evoque as an infrastructure partner, but be able to flex their spend between cloud consumption, colocation, and services like Evoque Cloud Engineering, which Foghorn is delivering.
Yeah, that is a tremendous offering. I love the story that it can tell, right? I mean, if you want to take a quick, the way I always look at it is what type of customer could utilize this? You got a lot of customers out there still with 30, 40-year-old applications that are living at, in their data center or a third-party data center because they refactoring them, getting them up and into a public cloud or even a private cloud could be very challenging. So those guys got to stay in a traditional data center type environment. Evoque brings that to the table. That private cloud environment, and then obviously the public cloud capabilities that you guys bring to the table really does tell an amazing story for a customer to be able to choose. And then recognizing that, like you said, that spend agility and giving the customer flexibility, unlike a lot of companies can do, really tells a really compelling story. So we couldn't be more excited to have you guys in the portfolio. What would you say, for our partners to, when they're on the lookout, a couple of key things? A, what's an ideal customer for you guys? And B, what are some things that you've seen, when you guys have been brought in, be really successful?
Yeah, so, what's an ideal customer? Well, usually the customer has to have enough infrastructure spend to make our services be able to, create a noticeable difference in their business. So that's usually mid to large enterprise.
Okay.
Oftentimes it's technology companies or SaaS companies where they've got products that are driving the top line revenue that are wholly or mostly supported by technology.
And just to make sure we always level set, because I know my definition of mid to large enterprise might vary. So when you would say, is there, a annual revenue amount or a employee size that you would just kind of throw out there?
I mean, I think, at the low end, in the $100 to $500 million range of revenue is probably a good sized business where they're big enough to get leverage out of the services we're offering.
Fair enough. Yeah, and I mean, a lot of times they can, what I've noticed is you have small companies, but they have a huge cloud spend, like you said, because it's a SaaS platform or they're doing some other things. So they can be deceiving. And, that's really going to be the telling part is, are they already spending a ton of money and things like that? But just as our partners are kind of prospecting and looking at stuff, I just want to make sure we always arm them with the right mindset on when to leverage Foghorn and Evoque and bring them in. So want to make sure we're good there.
Yeah, and I think that's also a good indicator. I mean, that's an easy question to ask often is, what is your current cloud spend? And if the customer's spending over $100,000 a month in the cloud, they can absolutely use our services. Yeah,
and that sounds like a big number, but it would also surprise you how many companies are doing that. Because this is a little bit of a different environment than some of our traditional, channel environments have been. It's not shocking to see 6 figures a month on an AWS bill or a Microsoft Azure bill or a combination thereof. So, is there anything else, whenever we go to engage Foghorn, is there any other things that you would give us, like some advice on, and the best way to engage you guys holistically?
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, if you look at, I really think that services like Foghorns are driven by customer pain. And so asking the customer where their pain points are can lead you to all sorts of cool opportunities, not just Foghorn opportunities. But the types of pain that we've seen that drives deals to close really quickly and where we can add a lot of value. Oftentimes, if you look at shops where they're a DevOps shop, it's you build it, you run it shop. Their development teams might be getting blocked by infrastructure requirements. They might not be able to hire DevOps people to support their cloud infrastructure. Business teams always get shocked by a large cloud bill that they did not forecast. I'd mentioned before, security incidents are usually a big driver. And then the last one, just customers are on the cloud and doing fine, but they're just not getting the reliability or scalability that they expected by moving to the cloud. It doesn't seem like they're getting it, and maybe they're not, and maybe we can help them. And maybe last would just be companies who can't seem to get their cloud initiatives off the ground. They're sort of stalled, and we can often help them as well.
Yeah, I think that's been one of the best questions I've heard asked is, are you on track with your migration plans or your initiatives? Oftentimes the answer is no, right? We get a lot of that, and then it's just diving in to figure out, do you not have the expertise or the resources, and you guys can definitely step in and, like we said earlier, be an extension of that team. So I look forward to getting you guys introduced to as many partners as we can and getting some really great opportunities for you as we continue to grow our partnership. Peter, is there any last words that you have before we sign off on this?
Yeah, sure. If you need help, I'm available. So send me an email, peter@foghornconsulting.com. I'll set you up with the marketing team to get you the content you need, and let's see what we can do. Don't be afraid to ask questions, because that's usually, even if it's a bad example or a non-opportunity, it's a great opportunity to learn, and people quickly figure out how to get in front of their customers and ask the right questions.
Yeah.
So, and then I think we have a joint page for you at evoquedcs.com/Telarus.
Yes, you do, and that's available in the Telarus back office as well for all of our partners to access, so they'll be able to get it there. Also note that our engineers and solutions architects are going to be deeply aligned with Foghorn and their team, so they will be able to get you guys over opportunities as needed and where it makes the most sense. But Peter, your time is much appreciated, as well as your availability in the future for our partners. Any questions that you have or anything that you ever need from us, just please let me know. And thank you again for joining us and taking the time to go over everything that Foghorn can do for our partners.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was great.
Absolutely. So thank you for joining myself and Peter Razakis, CTO of Foghorn, to learn a lot more about what Foghorn brings to the table and all the exciting things they can do in supporting any of your opportunities surrounding AWS, Azure, GCP, and along with their partnership and parent company of Evoque, a holistic infrastructure environment that includes traditional data center as well as private cloud, really putting together a complete package for your customers to choose from. I am Kobe Phillips, VP of Cloud here at Telarus. Again, thank you for your time and have a great rest of your day.